I won't stay silent.
I am committed to fighting for equality for all.
I am fully committed in the fight against racism.
I won't stay silent against racial discrimination and inequality.
I believe everyone should be treated equally.
I stand in solidarity in the fight against racism.
Estoy dedicado en la lucha contra el racismo.
I believe that everyone has to play a part in the fight for equality.
I'm part of the movement to fight for a better future for us all.
Let's all do our part.
Let's all do our part.
Let's all do our part. Let's all do our part.
To put an end to racism.
Equality for everyone.
So let's all stand up to make everyone see the beauty of it.
I stand against racism. I am part of the movement to fight for a better future for all.
Let's all do our part to put an end to racism.
Formula One using the hashtag #WeRaceAsOne, with all of the drivers spreading their message and are now all united, standing on the End Racism board, and they most of the drivers take the knee, 7 do not, the same that have not done for the last couple of Grand Prix. It's 2:10 here on BBC Radio 5 Live, and this is the British Grand Prix. As the cars make their way then around on the formation lap, this is the grid. Lewis Hamilton starts on pole position for Mercedes. Valtteri Bottas will be alongside him on the front row. Max Verstappen, third in the Red Bull. Charles Leclerc, fourth in the Ferrari. Lando Norris is fifth for McLaren. Lance Stroll is sixth in the Racing Point. Sainz, Ricciardo, Ocon and Sebastian Vettel complete the top 10. Pierre Gasly's 11th, Alex Albon is 12th. Then 13th won't be Nico Hülkenberg, an empty spot on the grid for him. Magnussen is 14th, Giovinazzi 15th, Raikkonen, Grosjean, Latifi, Kvyat and George Russell, the 20th of the 19 drivers that will start this British Grand Prix. It may not all be over for Nico Hülkenberg. Worth pointing out, he may be in the car here at Silverstone next week for the next Grand Prix, as the team wait to see what the regulations are regarding Perez and quarantine. As far as strategy is concerned, there are only 5 drivers starting on the soft compound of tyre. That is Lando Norris in 5th, Sainz in 7th, Ricciardo, Ocon and Vettel, the rest of the top 10. That's because they are forced to after qualifying on that tyre yesterday. Hamilton weaving through maggots and Beckett's, one of the fastest and most exhilarating, I'm told, sequence of corners in world motorsport, Jolyon.
It is. You are told correctly.
Well, I'm told by you, yeah.
Yeah. I was correct then, in that case. Everyone outside the top 10 on the medium tyre, that shows that it is the more desirable tyre to start on, and it is the McLaren's 5th for Norris, 7th for Sainz, and the 2 Renaults in 8th and 9th, as well as Sebastian Vettel in 10th that have to start on the soft. That should degrade a bit quicker and force them towards an early pit stop. But for those out front, the Mercedes, Verstappen and Leclerc, none of that to worry about, starting on the favoured medium.
The cars coming around through the last couple of corners to line up on the grid ahead of 52 laps of racing. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, Nigel Mansell used to say that the fans around Silverstone gave him up to an extra second a lap in advantage. Lewis Hamilton won't have the fans to cheer him on today, but there'll be thousands upon thousands of people at their home willing him on and willing everybody on for a great race.
Hamilton now pulling up into pole position. The winner of the Grand Prix here last year. 2018 was won by Sebastian Vettel, but Hamilton the 3 years before that. And he has won the British Grand Prix 6 times at Silverstone. He's slightly to the left of his grid slot, not dead centre in it, which is a little bit interesting. As the final couple of cars come around the last corner, George Russell in the Williams, who was given a 5-place grid drop for going too fast under yellow flags yesterday in qualifying. Ironically, yellow flags caused by Hamilton after a spin. The first right-hander is flat out at Abbey, and then it's down to the heavy braking zone at Village. That's where most of the action is going to come on this opening lap. All cars are in position now. The British Grand Prix is about to get underway here on 5 Live. Away they go. It's not a good start from Hamilton. Bottas is going to get right up alongside him on the run into Abbey, and he's going to take the lead. Is he there side by side through the first corner? Hamilton holds on round the outside, and now Bottas is going to be under pressure pressure from behind. Charles Leclerc has got ahead of Verstappen and up into third. Bottas locks up. Verstappen is fighting back with the Ferrari. The Red Bull has the inside, coming into the left-hander at Village, but Lewis Hamilton has got away with a bad start and is in the lead of the race. Second is Bottas, third is Verstappen, but for how much longer? Because right behind him is Charles Leclerc coming down into the Brooklands, the left-hand corner. Lando Norris has a big lock-up on the left front and is sailing wide. His McLaren teammate Carlos Sainz trying to go around the outside of him, and I think he's managed to do it. So Sainz now is up into 5th position and is trying to challenge Charles Leclerc straight away as they come through Cox. So Leclerc's got a very slow run out of Luffield, darts to the inside, manages to cover it off, but Hamilton, Jolyon Palmer, really got away with that one.
He really did. Norris has lost another place to Daniel Ricciardo as well, so what looked like a good start has gone bad for him, down to 8th place. Wasn't a good start for Hamilton, though, but he managed to keep his footing around the outside of Valtteri Bottas at turn 1, flat out at Abbey Corner, and he kept the place, so he got away with it. Bottas maybe blended out of the throttle there, or didn't have the line, and should have taken the lead, didn't.
Hamilton leading then as they come down to complete the first lap of 52 here on 5 Live at the British Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas is running in 2nd place in the Mercedes. 3rd position is Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. 4th is Charles Leclerc. 5th is Carlos Sainz. 6th is Daniel Ricciardo. 7th is Lando Norris. Stroll, Ocon and Vettel, the rest of the top 10. Gasly is up into 11th position. There's a yellow flag because Magnussen is off and in the gravel, and he might have had contact there because there is a wheel off his car. The front left appears to be totally ripped from the car of Kevin Magnussen. He's buried in the gravel trap and the safety car is deployed. Alex, we're just getting a replay of what happened, and Alex Albon went up the inside of Magnussen coming into the second part of club. Magnussen turned in and he was therefore sent flying into the gravel and then into the barriers, and it was the front left that came off that Haas safety car deployed.
Quite high speed into the wall there for Magnussen, so out of the race, and Albon taking a big whack on the left front.
Are you okay, Kevin? Are you okay?
Yeah, good.
Well, he's good in terms of he's okay, but he's not good because he's out of the Grand Prix. Was that a fair enough move from Albon?
So Magnussen had a good start, was up into 12th place, but he got it wrong at the first part of club, hit the curb heavily on the right-hand side, which gave Albon half a chance to go on the inside. They could have ran side by side, I think, through that corner, and Magnussen maybe didn't know he was there and turned in. Albon had half a car alongside. Hopefully we'll get another shot of it. But it was a risky one for Albon, absolutely no doubt about it. Putting a car on the inside of a gap that usually you'd expect to close, but depends how far along the inside he was. If we get another look, it'll be better. It was opportunistic. He's made a few opportunistic passes the last few races, but this one, obviously, a little bit too much.
I'm surprised his car's okay, to be honest.
The front suspension seemed to be made of stern stuff. Maybe the Red Bull not so much after we saw the hit that Verstappen had in the wall last time. But, yeah, I'm surprised his car's okay. They are at snail's pace right now behind the safety car, so he's not getting it fully tested, but looks to be pointing in the right direction.
Lap 3 of 52 then, as the cars come across the line behind the safety car. Hamilton leading, Bottas second. Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, Stroll, Ocon and Vettel, the top 10. Gasly is 11th, Albon is 12th, Giovinazzi's 13th, 14th is Kvyat, 15th is Grosjean, 16th Raikkonen, 17th is George Russell, who's got ahead of his teammate Nicholas Latifi, who's in 18th position. Jonathan Wheatley, the team manager at Red Bull, appeared to just look over the pit wall as Albon drove past, seemed to be happy enough with the car and gave the thumbs up to the rest of the pit wall there. So safety car conditions at the moment. No one has decided to come into the pits just yet. We're getting a replay of the start, and I'm really surprised Bottas couldn't hold it in there at Abbey, because he was pretty much alongside.
He lifted off massively at the apex. That's not what Bottas needs to do if he wants to win this title. He's given Hamilton points here by just chickening on the inside of turn 1. Hamilton squeezed him in a little bit, but Rosberg would have kept his foot in.
Yeah,
Bottas did not.
Rosberg would have kept his foot in, and either they have an accident or he takes the lead.
Precisely, and Bottas just eased off, and that's what slowed Verstappen, who then had to ease off at turn 2, and Charles Leclerc swept around the outside of him, and Verstappen did brilliantly to get that back around the outside of 3, big load of oversteer, and then kept it neat. Exit of 4, the loop. and squeezing on the throttle pretty well with low grip, kept that place.
Sebastian Vettel had a look to the outside of Esteban Ocon coming into Kopp's corner, and then had a big lock-up on the right front, so that's not going to help Vettel a huge amount. Already disadvantaged starting on the soft tyres, and around the outside of Kopp's was a bit of a brave one. We're getting a look again at Albon's look at Magnussen. I think it was fairly fair enough for Albon to have a look at going through there.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I don't know where he's expecting me to go, to be honest.
That was the sound of Albon on the radio and Magnussen crashing into the wall.
Yeah, I think because Magnussen made the mistake the corner before, that gave Albon the chance, and he was a fair way along the inside of Magnussen. Magnussen, I think, had to give him space on the apex. He didn't. He turned in, and it ended his race heavily into the barriers. I would say that is fair dues, really, from Albon. There was a gap there. He went for it. It closed, but it wasn't a late lunge. He had a good portion of his car up the inside, and Magnussen just turned in regardless, having made a mistake the corner before.
So safety car deployed still here at the British Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton leading, Bottas second, Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth, Carlos Sainz is in fifth position. Jolyon Palmer, myself, Jack Nicholls, and Jenny Gow with you for the coverage.
Yeah, and just looking at pit stops and what we're expecting, we think the pit window will open around lap 16. Now, that was lap 16 if it was a normal race. Obviously, they've been under the safety car now for a few laps. Safety car won't really help anyone out because it's too early. The hard tyre could only last around 40 laps, they reckon, doing the math around this track, and the race, of course, 52 laps. So they'll keep on going, circulating on these tyres, see what they can do, but they reckon the fastest way to get around this race is a one-stop strategy, going from the soft tyre or the medium across to the hard tyre, somewhere between laps 16 to 24.
The safety car will help out those that started on a soft tyre. It will help them go a little bit longer into the race. That's the two McLarens, the two Renaults, and Sebastian Vettel with his locked up right front from that Kopp's corner attack on Esteban Ocon on lap 1. So the more laps we cruise behind the safety car, we're now on lap 4. The further into the race those guys starting on the soft can go, and it will help their strategy a bit.
Andrew Benson, BBC's chief F1 writer, is in the media centre at Silverstone, and actually safety cars are fairly common here, Andrew, which adds to the tyre intrigue.
Yeah, it's an 80% historic chance of safety cars, and I guess that's just gone up a little bit with this one. Just listening to what Jenny said about the strategy there, it was quite funny to see the Pirelli strategy advice came through to us yesterday afternoon, as it always does, and it was predicting that the fastest race strategy was to start on the soft and then go onto the hard, and yet you're looking at a grid where Mercedes, both cars, one Ferrari and one Red Bull, all got through on the medium because they knew for sure that the medium then hard one-stop strategy was the quickest. So it happens quite a lot with the Pirelli strategy sheet, I'm afraid. But anyway, just parking that one for a minute, this helps everybody who wants to try and do a one-stop, which they'll all want to try to do on that front. And it's obviously going on for quite a while, this safety car, as they try and clear Magnussen's car away from that spot on the outside of club. And just on the Albon Magnussen incident, I completely agree with you two. He had absolutely every right to go there. He had a lot of his car alongside. Magnussen should have given him space. I think also it was it's a pretty much a flat-out right-hander, that second part of club, which I think is, if he were lunging it into a braking zone from that far back, then maybe you'd be like, okay, but it's a position where it's fairly straightforward to give someone room. Yeah, it's flat out if you're on the racing line, which is what Magnussen wanted to be on, but you can't necessarily take the racing line if there's a car on your inside, which there was, and only there because Magnussen had clouted the curb the corner before and lost a load of time and given Albon a sniff. So they could have easily run side by side there. Albon wasn't out of control of the apex. He simply didn't have anywhere to go when Magnussen turned into him. So two retirements in this Grand Prix, Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg. What do they have in common? They were both teammates to myself. Correct. Jolyon Palmer's two Formula One teammates out of the Grand Prix. So's Jolyon Palmer, but that's best for us. Jenny, more news on Hülkenberg?
Yeah, it didn't start the race, unfortunately. They weren't able to fire up the power unit. They're investigating to find out exactly why, but worth bearing in mind when we talk about Mercedes, the reliability, it's a Mercedes engine in the back of that Racing Point. So huge disappointment for the team and for Nico Hulkenberg, hoping to get back into a car that could have given him a podium. He's never had one before, he won't have one now.
And in my 2 British Grand Prix, I've experienced the Hulkenberg not starting the race in 2017 when my car broke down on the warm-up lap. And I've experienced the Magnussen of wheels coming off at pit stop. It wasn't a big crash into the wall, but had a pit stop and the wheels didn't go on. So bad times for me, bad times for them.
If Jolyon Palmer had no luck at all, what's the saying? I can't remember. If he didn't have bad luck, he'd had no luck at all. That's the phrase at the British Grand Prix. Safety car coming in then. We're about to go racing once more. Hamilton is leading the way. Bottas is second. Verstappen is third. Leclerc is fourth. Sainz is fifth. Hamilton floors the throttle now, and he's got an excellent restart. Bottas half asleep, and he's got Max Verstappen right behind him as they come down into the final couple of corners. Verstappen looked a lot closer than he has ended up being, and then it's quite the queue back from Leclerc, Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, Stroll, Ocon and Vettel. So Bottas, to me, looked as though he got a terrible restart and Verstappen was right with him, but Verstappen then suddenly dropped back quite a long way. Lando Norris is under big pressure here from Lance Stroll. Battle for 7th position. The McLaren driver holds it for the moment. Then Stroll is closely followed by Ocon. And Stroll has taken quite a tight line into the left-hander of Village, so he might be under pressure from Ocon out onto the Wellington straight. Hamilton holds the lead fairly comfortably. Bottas in second, Verstappen third, and Stroll is dramatically defending from Esteban Ocon coming into Brooklands, but he holds the position for the moment. DRS, the drag reduction system where they open the little flap in the rear wing to increase straight line speed, not active yet. It will be in a couple of laps' time. But I thought Verstappen was right on the back of Bottas for that one.
He was, because Bottas was completely asleep at the safety car restart. Hamilton went earlier than he'd obviously ever expected. He then, though, did do a very quick final couple of corners, which extended the gap to Verstappen, and he stayed with Hamilton at just under a second's gap. But the safety car restart's always a chance to try and pressurise the guy ahead into a mistake, and Bottas just wasn't ready for that one.
Lap 6 of 52 on the British Grand Prix here on 5 Live. Stroll under pressure again from Esteban Ocon, coming down into Stowe Corner. Does a very late defensive dart, does Stroll. Ocon still gets the inside line, can't quite make the move stick. So the pink Racing Point holds off the yellow Renault for the moment in their battle over 8th position. And Alex Albon pits then. So Alex Albon into the pit lane. Perhaps when he's back up to racing speed, he's felt uncomfortable with the car after his collision with Kevin Magnussen, because I wouldn't have thought this will be a straightforward pit stop, because you would take advantage of doing it behind the safety car if it was for strategical purposes.
Yeah, this must be for some damage, surely. The Red Bull team are ready for him. But why would you pit now in normal strategy? They are just switching him from the medium tyres to the hard tyres. That's bizarre. Why would they not have pitted a couple of laps ago and had that pit stop for free?
They were just on the radio to him, and it was all when Jonathan Wheatley came out to have a look at the car. Alex was talking about front left vibration, saying he was worried it was flat spotting. So Jonathan Wheatley came out to have a look over the pit wall and see just what damage was done. So I just wonder if he felt that those tyres were too shot in the end, came in just to get rid of the hards. But yeah, as you say, it would have been a bit more sense to come in under the safety car.
Yeah, so maybe it was only when he got back up to racing speed that he found out just how bad it was, potentially. Lap 7 of 52. Hamilton leading, 1.3 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas. Then it is 3.6 seconds to Charles Leclerc from Hamilton in the lead. It's 3 seconds then from Verstappen back to Leclerc, third to fourth. Fifth is Carlos Sainz. Sixth is Daniel Ricciardo. Seventh is Lando Norris. Eighth is Lance Stroll. Ninth is Esteban Ocon. 10th is Sebastian Vettel, who's under quite a bit of pressure here from Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri car, newly renamed the Toro Rosso team for this year. And Vettel, despite being on the softs, which in theory are a little quicker, although maybe not in race trim, he's under quite a lot of pressure from the Frenchman, Pierre Gasly, who was dropped last year to be replaced by Albon at Red Bull, who's now out again and down in 18th position.
Ferraris are both really struggling. Leclerc is a second slower than Verstappen ahead, nearly 2 seconds slower than Hamilton out front. So the man in fourth is dropping back quickly from the leading trio, and he's got a big gaggle behind him of Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, Stroll, Ocon, and then the Vettel-Gasly fight as well. Pretty much everyone still nose to tail behind Leclerc, and Ferrari's race pace not looking so quick.
Lap 8 of 52. Hamilton leading the Grand Prix, 1.5 seconds ahead of Bottas, Verstappen in third, and as you say, Leclerc fourth. His teammate at Ferrari, Vettel, in 10th. Really struggling this year, Andrew Benson, the Ferraris.
Yes, so we saw this on Friday, Jack, actually, in second practice. Their race pace was atrocious. Leclerc was nearly 2 seconds off the pace of the Mercedes on race pace, and at the end of that day, he came out and said they tried a radical setup, downforce level he was referring to. And they were showing, and the car was quick on one lap, but not over a race run. They were damaging the tyres. Now, he said then that they would analyse the data and work out what would be the best compromise, but they stuck with that low downforce setup for qualifying and race, because you can't change the car between qualifying and race because of the Parc Fermé regulations. And I mean, they've done it to get a good grid position, but what we're seeing here, I don't know whether people remember the late 90s and early 2000s, what was referred to as the Trulli train, where Jarno Trulli would qualify really well and then spend the entire race with a gaggle of cars up his back. I thought this might happen with the Ferraris, and lo and behold, this is exactly what we've got with Charles Leclerc right now.
Yeah, indeed. He's running in fourth position, and then everybody queued up behind him. Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, Stroll, Ocon and Vettel, and then indeed that queue from Vettel backwards as well. Although, to be fair to Vettel, he seems to be a little bit stuck behind Esteban Ocon in 9th position at the moment. Lap 9 of 52. Hamilton 1.7 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas, so not pulling away rapidly at the front. I have to say, they pretty much matched each other on the last lap. Max Verstappen is about 0.4 of a second a lap slower than the Mercedes in front of them at the moment. So as a result, he's dropped to 5 seconds off the lead of Lewis Hamilton. The sound you can hear is Sebastian Vettel, just coming into the right-hander of Copse Corner now, down 2 gears, back on the power, and then accelerating towards Maggots and Beckett's, approaching at 190 miles an hour, turning left at 190, then losing a bit of speed down to 160, and then to the slowest corner, a measly 120 miles an hour, before he gets back on the power, up to 200, down the hanger straight again. Lap 9 of 52, Hamilton leading the way.
Copse Corner was flat out in qualifying. It shows the effect that 100 kilos of fuel weight has, and in a bit of dirty air of Esteban Ocon ahead. Sebastian Vettel now downshifting twice to get through the apex there. But he does seem to be a little bit stuck in behind Ocon, so that Ferrari is not dropping back on its own accord, but they're all lapping at a similar pace to Leclerc in 4th place. Leclerc's under no big pressure. Carlos Sainz and Daniel Ricciardo just behind, not really catching him, and they're a couple of seconds back, but it's just the rate he's dropping away from everyone ahead that is a very fast rate. Over a second again, slower than Verstappen. And Verstappen's dropping half a second a lap from the Mercedes.
So Hamilton's lead still 1.7 seconds. Bottas in second, Verstappen in third. Leclerc is in 4th position. And this train actually, as I say, to be fair to Vettel, is growing a little bit behind Esteban Ocon in 8th position in the Racing Point. He's looks to be out of range really of Lance Stroll in 8th in that Racing Point. Ocon 9th in the Renault, I should say. Hamilton continuing to lead, 1.5 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas at the front of the field. Verstappen 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, Stroll, Ocon and Vettel the top 10. Outside of the top 10 is Pierre Gasly, Antonio Giovinazzi, Daniel Kvyat, Romain Grosjean. Raikkonen is just in front of George Russell, who's in 16th place. Nicholas Latifi's in 7th. Last of the runners, Jenny, is Alex Albon.
Yeah, but the team will be hoping down at Red Bull that he's done his one and only stop for this race. They pitted him from a medium tyre onto a hard tyre. Now, officially, Pirelli reckon that can only do 40 laps, but he might be able to stretch that to 45, I reckon, as the car gets lighter and lighter and the fuel is used up. He's got a new race engineer this weekend as well, Simon Rennie, who used to be Daniel Ricciardo's race engineer at Red Bull. So he'll be trying to calm him down and just go, OK, hold fire, we will get back to being in some kind of a race at some point.
Carlos, the field is quite compressed at the moment. Field is quite compressed, so we're looking for plan A, target lap.
So Carlos Sainz being told the field is quite compressed at the moment, and he's the first of the drivers that is on the soft compound of tyre as opposed to the mediums in 5th position. So presumably that's going to affect when he can make his pit stop.
Well, if he pits now, the field is so compressed that he'd go from 5th to plumb last, apart from Alex Albon, who's already pitted as well. So, target lap, I don't know if that's earlier than they were otherwise thinking, or keep going slightly later. Right now, he's in 5th and doing well. But remember, on the soft tyres, which will degrade slightly faster than everyone on mediums, and already the medium runners are looking a little better. Lance Stroll putting pressure on Lando Norris for 7th, and Pierre Gasly's very close behind Vettel as well for 10th place.
Lap 11 of 52. Hamilton's lead comes down to 1.2 seconds on that last lap. Valtteri Bottas has done the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and taken a good couple of chunks there out of Lewis Hamilton. Lance Stroll is struggling a little in 8th position in the Racing Point in what, in theory, should be a pretty quick car this weekend, but I don't think Stroll's made the best of it, to be perfectly honest. He's running in 8th position at the moment. Still a long way to go in this Grand Prix. Also worth pointing out with Albon that with the high chance of safety cars, I think, was it 2018 here, where we had about 3 or 4 safety cars, which led to a very, very busy Grand Prix. It was the day after England beat Sweden in the World Cup, and that was a great race. So Albon sort of pootling around on those hards could come into play if there's a safety car later on.
And even if he doesn't have to pit again, he may yet end up in the battle for points. Here's Lando Norris.
Lando, if we can look after the front left a bit and keep Stroll behind, that will be good for us. It's going to be a struggle.
Doing the two combined is not an easy thing. Look after the front left. It's going to be important because there's a lot of fast right-handers, and the front left tyre is the one that takes most of the load. The way to look after it is basically to go slower through the apexes of those fast corners. So the engineer asking him to go slower in some corners but still keep the car that's raging in his mirrors behind. It's a tricky compromise there for Norris. He's under pressure. Stroll, he has dropped back at the start of this race, but he is in a quick car, as you say, Jack, and he's looking to pass Norris.
Oh, someone's off at Maggots and Beckett's, and it's a big one. And it is Daniel Kvyat in the AlphaTauri, has gone off big style, ripped the left rear off the car, and there is another safety car. Very, very unusual position there for Kvyat. He must have had contact. I think he's gone side by side into Maggots and Beckett's with someone potentially, because otherwise it's a failure on the car. Safety car deployed, teams getting ready to pit their drivers potentially, but a big crash for Daniel Kvyat, the Russian. And everybody now pouring into the pits. I don't think the Mercedes have, though, interestingly.
All the soft tyre runners are in, and a few chances from outside of the top 10. Everyone else that started on a medium carries on, including the top 4. And Lance Stroll then, who won't need to pass Lando Norris after all. I wonder if Kvyat was racing with his teammate, you know, Pierre Gasly. They were quite close in the battle for 11th place. Gasly bottled up behind Vettel, and Kvyat's car is wrecked in the fastest part of the circuit. Huge gravel plume that came up. He's out the car, he's okay, he's looking around at it disconsolate because that is a lot of damage, and I'm sure quite an achy Russian.
So I wonder if the front runners were past the pit entry. We're about to see what happened here to Daniel Kvyat. No, he's by himself, left rear failure by the looks of it, and he has gone hard into a concrete wall.
Yeah, straight head on as well. Nose cone first, and it's a suspension failure for Kvyat. He wasn't close enough to Gasly ahead. This is the sound of it.
Oh, that is a big hit into a concrete wall, I tell you.
Oh, guys, I'm so sorry.
I don't think it was...
okay, Danny? Yes.
He's turning into that left-hander at around about 180 miles an hour, so maybe down to what, 120 by the time he hits the wall if he's lucky. That's a huge crash for Kvyat.
If that, I mean, it's huge impact. You don't actually, that first left-hander is very easy flat out. It's barely a corner where Kvyat lost it. It looked like a rear suspension failure, the way it suddenly snapped like that, but Kvyat apologising to the team suggests he doesn't know that or doesn't think that.
Yeah.
So that was a strange one for him. Huge accident. I'm glad he's okay after that, because the G, when he hit that wall, would have been massive. Front runners are in, Jack.
Yeah, Hamilton pits, Bottas pits. They immediately go back out onto the circuit, as does Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, is he going to come out? Yeah, Verstappen comes out well in front of Leclerc, in fact. Verstappen's out of the pits before Leclerc's kind of even in it, and it's a bit of a slow stop for the Ferrari team as well, so we'll see whether this shakes anything up at all. The front runners were past the pit lane entry when the yellow flags came out, I believe, so that's why they couldn't pit straight away. Lance Stroll into the pit lane as well, and the reason that I point out it's a concrete wall that Kvyat has hit is because in most places around the track where you're likely to have an accident, you have layers and layers of tyre barriers, or a thing called Tech Pro, which absorbs a lot of the hit, whereas a concrete wall does not. Daniel Kvyat gives the cameraman a hit that's trying to film him. So a very frustrated Russian, and I'm sure hitting tyre barriers at a high speed is not a pleasant experience, but straight into the concrete is a real tough one for Kvyat. So safety car deployed. Hamilton leads, Bottas second, Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth. Romain Grosjean is up into fifth position. He hasn't pitted yet for the Haas team. He's the only driver that didn't pit under the safety car conditions, and now he's up in fifth place. So that's a bit of a random strategy call from the Frenchman for the American team. Sainz and Ricciardo are sixth and seventh. Norris is eighth, Stroll is ninth, Sebastian Vettel is 10th. So Ocon is the loser, I think, in that round of pit stops, because he's emerged behind cars that he was in front of. Giovinazzi, Gasly, Albon, Russell, Raikkonen and Latifi, the 17 runners. Russell has got ahead of Latifi in that spell too.
So despite the safety car shake-up and drivers pitting on two separate laps, we have pretty much an identical order. All the pit stops are shaken out exactly the same, with the exception of Romain Grosjean, who hasn't pitted, being up in fifth, and will be a bit of a blockade for Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo and co behind on their new tyres in faster cars. But yeah, the only minor changes for George Russell, who's got ahead of Raikkonen and Latifi. The rest of them all now going to the end of the race on the hard tyre. No more strategy at play, unless there's more safety cars, but we did say there is a reasonable chance of safety car at this Grand Prix, and we've already seen two of them in the first 14 laps.
Yeah, exactly. So we are behind the safety car, and I think we will be for a couple more laps, because the marshals haven't started moving Daniel Kvyat's car yet. A reduced amount of marshals at the British Grand Prix this year, obviously due to COVID secure regulations, and a lot of them listening on the radio, because there's no trackside public address this weekend. So good afternoon if you're a marshal at Silverstone. Thank you for your work, but also if you're at Maggots and Beckett's, then you probably won't be listening to us right now, because you're clearing up Kvyat's car. Daniel Kvyat then, Jenny, our third retirement from the Grand Prix.
Yeah, he'll be on his way to the medical centre to get checked out. As you say, a very big impact for him. It's such a shame, because it actually made up a huge amount of places. He was up 6 places from where he started the race when he crashed out. So he'll be hugely disappointed. I'll tell you what, that AlphaTauri is a compact car now. It's just getting packed up, all of the pieces chucked on top of each other and into the little driver's cubby hole, and away it will go. It'll be heavy though, so back end will be wedging down if it gets taken out of the way by the tractor, which is just being put into place. And just another note on the Mercedes. Last time we had the safety car, as they were preparing to bring the safety car in, both of the drivers got a message saying, remember, use the DAS. So I would expect this to be another situation when the restart happens, that the drivers use their dual axle steering system to do magical things with their car. It's all about toe in, toe out, all that sort of stuff, which I'm sure Jolien can tell us about in a minute, to get the best out of those tyres and prepare them for the track, Jolien, when it goes live.
Yeah, that's one of the innovations Mercedes have got this year, the changing the toe settings, which will basically just scrub the tyre slightly against the surface of the tarmac by the drivers pulling and pushing the steering wheel. And this is the sort of reason, the sort of way that it can benefit. Kvyat's crash, I'm sure it was a right rear issue, maybe a tyre issue or a suspension issue, because watching it again, the right rear looks to be pointing the wrong way before he even hits the wall. And the place he's crashed is very strange, considering it's a comfortably flat out corner with the amount of downforce these cars have got. It was comfortably flat out when the cars had way less pace, way less downforce. So to lose it now is too strange, but yeah. I don't think Kvyat knows that.
I've never seen any car crash at that point on the circuit.
No, it's almost like an extension of a straight line where you just meander left before flinging it into the real fast stuff, the next right, left, right. Here's Gasly.
What's happened to Danny?
We are still investigating. He lost it turn 10, 11.
Is he okay?
He's okay, yes.
Okay.
So Gasly asking about the well-being of his teammate. Even the team saying he lost it, turn 10 and 11.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing to tell the other driver, unless
yeah.
you want to pit him and retire him from the race. You don't want to say he had a huge suspension failure or a puncture or something at that part of the track, because you might give Gasly the gym jams.
Have you Have you had that ever, where, oh, yeah, Hulkenberg had a brake failure, but you're fine, honest?
No, I haven't. The biggest one I had was Kevin Magnussen hit the wall at the top of Eau Rouge, right behind me, but it was driver error rather than anything else, which is kind of what you want to hear if your teammate has a big crash.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear that his car's failed, because there's a reasonable chance your car that's built to the same spec will also fail. But I do think that looked like a rear right issue for Kvyat. He doesn't seem to know it, and that's why he nudged the camera out of the way when the cameraman was filming him, leant up against the barriers. And it's as if he seems to be taking all the blame for that himself right now. Maybe we could get a better slow-mo shot of the right rear. It would be more categoric, but it looked to me like it was definitely a right rear failure.
Just spoken to the team at AlphaTauri to ask them if they knew if it was a suspension or tyre failure, what the guys were thinking, and the message that's come back saying we do not have evidence of any failure at the moment.
Interesting.
And I guess if you are Kvyat, you would be annoyed if you crashed on basically a straight.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You know, that's why he's going to be like, how have I possibly done that?
To lose it at that point of the track. And he was having a great drive as well. He's a man that's probably quite under pressure.
Yeah.
Although the pressure that the media are all talking about is Alex Albon in the Red Bull team, the junior team, or the B team, basically AlphaTauri. Daniel Kvyat is getting handsomely beaten by Pierre Gasly quite a lot at the moment, smashing the car up at a high-speed place, at a place where it's very unusual to see a driver error, would do nothing to alleviate that pressure. So I'm sure that's why Kvyat was showing just the amount of frustration that he was.
Lap 16 of 52 here on BBC Radio 5 Live. That's Jolyon Palmer, the former Renault F1 driver, Jenny Gow and myself, Jack Nicholls, and the BBC Chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson, bringing you coverage of this Grand Prix, the fourth round of the season, where Lewis Hamilton is leading the World Championship by 5 points. If he wins the Grand Prix today, that will extend to a 12-point margin over his Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas. He is leading ahead of Bottas, with Max Verstappen in third, Charles Leclerc in fourth, Romain Grosjean in fifth, but has yet to pit. Sainz is sixth, seventh is Ricciardo, eighth is Norris, ninth is Stroll, 10th is Sebastian Vettel, and then it's Ocon, Giovinazzi, Gasly, Albon, Russell, Raikkonen and Latifi, the 17 drivers still running. Daniel Kvyat has crashed out of the race, seemingly through some kind of failure on the car. Kevin Magnussen had a collision with Alex Albon and he's out of the Grand Prix, and Nico Hulkenberg didn't manage to take the start. So Hamilton leading, still a bit of debris on circuit, so I would say we're going to get another lap or two behind the safety car.
The safety car needs to speed up. This is just too slow for us.
Hamilton always says this, doesn't he, that the safety car is going too slowly, and I'm always surprised that the safety car then doesn't go quicker.
Well, he raised this in a driver's briefing a couple of years ago, and the safety car drivers were in there, and they were like, Lewis, we're going as fast as we can. Our car's not as fast as you. I don't know if you noticed. But
were you in there? Were you in that one then?
Yeah. I was in that one, because Hamilton is always complaining, and Formula One tyres are designed to go at very high speeds, which generates a lot of temperature. When the temperature falls, the tyres just simply don't work, and it's like driving on ice sometimes. So Hamilton there clearly concerned that his hard tyres, which will be the hardest to warm up, are going to be very cool when this race gets restarted. The Kvyat car is now being winched away.
We need to work on the tires, front and rears.
I'm trying, and the safety car is going so slow.
So Leclerc being given basically the same message there.
Yeah, but the safety car, sometimes they just can't go any quicker, but just in a Formula One car, the speed feels so slow. It's when you get a comparison to basically a road car and a Formula One car, and you really notice how quick the Formula One cars actually are. I remember in that meeting, Hamilton was saying, can't the safety car just cut the corners on some parts of the track as well, go straight across through some cut-throughs just to give them a bit of breathing space? But it looks like, if anything, they are getting a bit more breathing space now. But those hard tyres will be really difficult to warm up. 21 degrees out there, air temperature, which is just an all right British summer's day, isn't it? But it's not super hot, which is what, again, we're more used to in Formula One, racing in places like Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, even Hungary last time out as well. So yeah, this is going to be a challenge on the restart.
Quixotic Geek, using the hashtag BBCF1 on social media, points out another excellent drive from Bernd Mailander, who is the driver of the safety car. Here is Lando Norris.
Daniel's leaving way more than 10 car lengths. He leaves a massive gap to Carlos, like 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then pushes. Understood.
So that's Norris basically accusing Daniel Ricciardo, who's in 7th position in between the two McLarens, of going really slowly behind the safety car and then going fast for a little bit and then slowing down and then going fast to try and eliminate the problems we were just discussing of going too slowly and basically trying to gob him in, really, and get him in a bit of trouble so that he can get a place.
Is exactly that. And they're teammates next year, Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo switches to the McLaren team, but Norris just raising that to the race director then, just to say you might want to look at this because that is dropping back further than is permitted in the rules.
We're on lap 18 of 52 here at the British Grand Prix on BBC Radio 5 Live, so approaching half race distance. Most of it's been done behind the safety car. As I say, I think these safety car periods are going to be slightly extended because of the fewer marshals at the racetrack, so clearing the track takes a little longer, but the safety car will be in this lap. Now, will Bottas be awake to Hamilton restarting the Grand Prix this time? Because he almost had a very bad restart and was overtaken by Max Verstappen. And now he is tucked up right behind Hamilton as Hamilton comes around Stowe Corner. He leads, Bottas second, Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth. Grosjean in fifth is going to be an interesting one to keep an eye out for in the Haas, because he's going to be trying to go a little bit longer into this Grand Prix and do something just a little bit different, and there's going to be all bunched up behind him. Hamilton floors it, Bottas is with him a little better this time around. Verstappen struggling to stay with Bottas. Grosjean almost into the back of Charles Leclerc for fourth place. Leclerc's got a very poor restart, and as a result the Haas of Romain Grosjean is right behind him. The McLaren of Carlos Sainz is right behind him as they swing right through Abbey Corner, then down into Village, and Grosjean's going to be under big pressure here from Sainz. He doesn't get overtaken this time. Norris sends it round the outside of Ricciardo, and that could be a beautiful move from the British driver. He now has the inside line, and his teammate Carlos Sainz tries to box Ricciardo out. The move doesn't quite work out. Now they're onto the Wellington Straight. Leclerc is defending from Romain Grosjean in the Haas, and now Ricciardo's getting Sainz somehow. So all of a sudden, Ricciardo looked as though he was getting overtaken by one McLaren, almost overtakes the other. Now Norris goes to the outside at Lovefield, and that's a brilliant move. The McLaren of Norris up into 7th position, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Is he now going to try for his teammate as well? Coming into Cops Corner, Norris to the outside, turns in, and almost loses the back end, runs out wide, and Ricciardo will try and fight back. Not quite close enough, but good move from Norris up at Lovefield.
Great racing from the three of them, the two McLarens and Daniel Ricciardo. Norris payback there on Ricciardo for the lap 1 pass that Ricciardo put on him. Nearly tried to pass Sainz as well, had a big moment at Copse. Not the place you want to be having a twitch, but he corrected it well and remains ahead of the Australian.
Alex Albon has been given a time penalty, a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision with Kevin Magnussen, which I think, well, I don't want to speak for Palmer, I think that's nonsense, but there we go.
Yeah, well, we thought he was within his rights to have a look on the inside there. The stewards say different and give him a 5-second penalty. Disagree with that one? It's another week of Formula 1.
Exactly. It's another week of VAR, basically, isn't it? Lap 20 of 52. And we are getting Hamilton in the lead, 1.1 seconds ahead of Bottas. Bottas, again, is looking quick today, I've got to say. He's keeping within a couple of seconds of the race leader, Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen is third. Fourth is Charles Leclerc still. Fifth is Romain Grosjean, and Grosjean is staying with Leclerc here quite comfortably.
Medium tyres for Grosjean, hard tyres for Leclerc. And it was interesting, the warm-up of the mediums was obviously very good, and actually he is staying still with Charles Leclerc, second lap after the restart, and Grosjean doing a good job then in the Haas. They've done something different on strategy, like they did last time in Hungary. There it worked. Here they're going to need another safety car or something to make this one work, but I like what they're doing. And Grosjean right now making it work for the moment.
Bottas is within a second of Lewis Hamilton. So Bottas is going to have the DRS on Hamilton before too long. This is not a dominant display so far from Hamilton. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but the Bottas is able to stay less than a second away. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, I was just looking at that tyre data. Obviously, Grosjean didn't come in. He's done 19 laps on the medium tyre, and he's the only driver still on the field not to have come in and pitted. So, as you say, Jolene, doing a very different strategy. Last time out, it worked for them to do that. But this time, you can't help thinking it's a huge gamble for them to take. I mean, they're in 5th place, but it's just a matter of time. They're going to have to stop.
There's no gamble when you're not going to get anything if you don't gamble, though. It's
I suppose so, but
yeah, he's basically started at the back. If he does what everyone else does, he'll still be at the back. He hasn't. He's up in 5th. And if there is another safety car in 15, 20 laps, maybe everyone will pit and he'll be in a genuine 5th place. So that's what they're trying to do there.
Medium tyres, sorry Jack, medium tyres can get to a maximum of, they reckon, 30 laps, but obviously they've been under safety car, so maybe they can push it to 35, 36 laps.
Yeah, maybe even 40. We've had a lot of laps under safety car, to be fair. So, we'll wait and see what happens with Romain Grosjean. Still running in 5th position at the moment, only half a second ahead of Carlos Sainz. Hamilton set the fastest lap of the race last time around, but he's still only 1.2 seconds ahead of Bottas. He's broken that 1 second barrier within which Bottas will get the drag reduction system at various points on the circuit, but not enough to really be pulling hugely clear. Grosjean is under big pressure now from Sainz. Sainz goes to the inside. Grosjean very rudely comes and tries to block him off a little bit. Holds onto the place for the moment, Romain Grosjean, but he did the kind of driving I don't really like to see, personally, where he just wiggles over randomly once Sainz has made his move to the inside. Hamilton does another fastest lap of the race, but the gap is still 1.2 seconds for the lead.
Wow, Grosjean risked that with Carlos Sainz. Sainz doesn't really need to be in this fight because Grosjean is on a gamble strategy that probably won't play out for position anywhere near this by the end of the race, but he is just blocking Sainz now, and that was a really last gasp sweep to the inside to try and defend from Sainz. Then they went toe-to-toe through Stowe Corner and they were millimetres away. Sainz now in the DRS again, down towards Brooklands, might have another try.
Sends it to the inside, not quite able to do so. So Grosjean in the Haas in 5th position, Sainz and Norris in the McLarens in 6th and 7th. 8th is Daniel Ricciardo, 9th is Lance Stroll, 10th is Esteban Ocon. Vettel now drops outside of the top 10 and the points-paying positions, because I think he's been passed by Ocon, hasn't he? He had got ahead of Ocon at one point.
He changed direction. Dangerous driving. Oh my God.
Copy, we saw it.
Yeah, the replay from Sainz actually made it look worse. I thought it might make it look better.
No, it wasn't very clever, that from Grosjean. A late swerve that Sainz actually had to get out of the throttle, and then they so nearly collided at Stowe as well, where Grosjean barely gave him enough space on the inside.
He's going again now, Carlos Sainz. Again, Grosjean comes across, but Sainz gets the move done this time, and into Stowe Corner. Carlos Sainz is up into 5th position. Grosjean 6th. Bottas sets the fastest lap of the race, and there's still just a second between the two Mercedes as they come across the line. They are going at it. Hammer and tongs up at the front. Really good race between Hamilton and Bottas.
Still just over that second gap. Just if Bottas can get within DRS, he'll get the drag reduction system and maybe be able to attack Hamilton down the 3 straights around this circuit, where you'll be able to gain that advantage. Ocon was already ahead of Vettel in the Grand Prix as well. It's only because Grosjean's ahead now. Vettel has been 10th for the entire race. But because Grosjean needs to pit, he'll get back to 10th place.
I thought he had got up into 10th position and Ocon was down to 11th at the safety car period, and Ocon got back past Vettel, but perhaps I'm incorrect. Stranger things have happened. Lap 23 of 52. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz in the McLaren just getting a bit of a warning from the team. He just went outside the confines of the racetrack at turn 9. Now, if you do that too many times, you're in trouble with the stewards. So he needs to watch himself. They said 1 strike at the moment to his name, so he needs to watch himself with track limits.
Okay, lap 23 of 52. And we've got Hamilton leading the Grand Prix, 1.1 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Then it's 4.3 back to Max Verstappen in 3rd. Leclerc is 4th, Sainz is 5th. Grosjean is still within a second of Carlos Sainz, but Norris has now come to the back of Grosjean in their battle over 6th and 7th. Ricciardo actually is right behind Lando Norris in the Renault, and then Stroll is right behind him in the Racing Point. Ocon a little bit adrift further back. Here's Norris's radio.
Okay, that's Grosjean. Let's go get him.
That's Grosjean. Let's go get him is the message to Lando Norris from his engineer. Antonio Giovinazzi's having a decent race as well. In 12th place, he's an outsider for some points here for Alfa Romeo. Not a very fast car this year, but he's still within that sort of lead train that are all queued up behind the others. Ultimately, well, kind of all behind Sainz and Grosjean in 5th and 6th position, because Leclerc has managed to get away from them a little now. Hamilton leading and is doing a good couple of laps. He's got the gap up to 1.7 seconds.
Bottas was dozy again, and the second safety car restart, he's never able to pressurise Hamilton. It was okay, it was fine. He wasn't under pressure from behind from Verstappen. But I could just imagine, again, role reversal, Hamilton would be closer to attacking his teammate. And Bottas, both times, safety car restart is always an opportunity. And he was putting Hamilton under zero pressure at all. Now his pace is okay. Hamilton has just stretched that gap, as you say, to 1.6 seconds. But his pace is fine. He's just got to get back within a second to put the pressure on Lewis Hamilton out front.
The stewards have noted the incident involving Grosjean and Carlos Sainz as the McLaren teammate Lando Norris goes up the inside of Grosjean, now down at Stowe corner, gets it up the inside, nicely done. Grosjean trying to hold in there into the left-hander of Vale. Norris gives him plenty of room, which is wise when you're racing Romain Grosjean, and is through up into 6th position. So Sainz 5th, Norris now 6th. Grosjean, Ricciardo, Stroll and Ocon are the rest of the top 10. Hamilton still leading now 1.7 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas. Nice clean move that from Lando Norris.
Nice move. I'm wincing every time they go side by side with Romain Grosjean down at Stowe, these two McLarens, but that one was done with a little bit more space on the inside for Norris than Carlos Sainz had before, and no late swerve from Grosjean. So good move there from Norris, up into 6th place. And now he's got Grosjean between him and Ricciardo behind as well, which will just ease the pressure somewhat.
And now Grosjean will be under pressure from Daniel Ricciardo, with Stroll in 9th, Ocon in 10th. Outside of the top 10, which are the point-scoring positions, it is Vettel, Giovinazzi, Gasly, Albon, Raikkonen, Russell and Latifi. The 17 drivers still running, so at some point Raikkonen's got back ahead of Russell, because Russell was in front of the Alfa Romeo at one point. Lap 25 of 52, approaching half race distance. And on that last couple of laps, Hamilton has really gapped Bottas a little bit. The gap now is almost up to 2 seconds. Alex Albon on his charge back through the order, right up behind Pierre Gasly for 13th place, but not able to get past him yet as they all fan out onto the hangar straight. There's no overtaking just yet on the run down into Stowe corner.
All have DRS at the moment. Grosjean's still close enough to Lando Norris to take the DRS within 1 second. But soon that second will grow, and then he'll be under pressure once more from Ricciardo, Stroll, Ocon, Vettel and Giovinazzi. There's a huge line of them that will want to pass Grosjean, who hasn't pitted and is on older tyres. That's why he's dropping back this much, and he's in a slower car fundamentally.
Yeah. A warning for Romain Grosjean for that manoeuvre. That's, you know what? All right, fine. Give him a warning for that. Okay.
Yeah, I can. That if we're going to have a warning flag in Formula One, that is where you'd want to see it.
Yeah. It's a black and white warning flag, and don't do that again, basically. And I think that, yeah, that's legitimate. Goodness me. Agreeing with the stewards. We're going to have a very short checker flag podcast later on.
Well, you win some, you lose some, is the story of this race so far.
Yeah, exactly. Hamilton leading 2 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas now in 2nd position. Then it's 5 seconds back to Max Verstappen, 8 seconds back to Charles Leclerc. So the Red Bull and the Ferrari driver are going to have a very lonely race. Then it's Sainz and Norris in 5th and 6th. Norris hasn't quite been able to pull away from Grosjean just yet, hasn't been able to break DRS, and everybody kicking up a little bit of dust as they come through the left-hander at Chapel Curve. And now here comes Ocon on Lance Stroll for 9th position. Ocon to the outside, trying to go all the way around the outside at Stowe. Stroll hangs it in on the inside. Nicely done from the Canadian, and the Racing Point holds the place for the time being. Ocon to the outside into Vale, not able to get through. Stroll did well there to hold that place.
Well defended, deep on the brakes at Stowe, and kept his line on the inside. Ocon was almost fully passed before the braking zone, but just came off the throttle a little bit earlier and gave Stroll a chance to keep it in on the inside, which he took very, very nicely.
We are... It all came... Oh, he really got on the grass, didn't he, coming out of Chapel?
Yeah, they were all kicking up the grass on the left-hand side. Exeter Beckett's on basically the apex of Chapel Curve, flat out. Ricciardo got on it, And then Stroll went that little bit further, which just slowed his momentum on the subsequent straight.
Lap 27 of 52. Hamilton leading the British Grand Prix here on BBC Radio 5 Live. 2.1 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas in the other Mercedes. They are 5 seconds clear of the rest of the field at the moment. And we are at half-race distance now. Charles Leclerc is fourth for Ferrari. Fifth and sixth are the two McLarens of Sainz and Norris. This is Kimi Räikkönen.
What is happening with the rears? The wind is increasing a lot. Everybody's complaining.
What is happening with the rears, asks Kimi Räikkönen, i.e. the rear tyres. So not happy with those.
Not happy at all, down in 15th place, and a good few seconds from the car ahead of him, which is still Alex Albon. And that is the back of the long... It's still the Lando Norris train, you know. Grosjean stayed within a second of him for now. So Norris in 6th, down to Albon in 14th. There's all just one stream of cars still.
Grosjean actually does his personal best lap of the race this time through as they pass the main grandstands, which are, of course, empty today. And he still goes... Yeah, he goes 0.2 of a second quicker than Lando Norris in front of him. But Hamilton is bossing it out front. 1.8 seconds the gap between he and Valtteri Bottas. Everybody is pitted in this Grand Prix except for Romain Grosjean, who is still out there on the medium tyres. The Haas team taking a bit of a gamble, hoping that there will be another safety car or some such in order to give them an opportunity to get a good point-scoring position, because the Haas team are struggling this year. Grosjean running in 7th place. His teammate Kevin Magnussen out of the Grand Prix at the moment. I say at the moment, he will be for the rest of the Grand Prix, and he's not coming back into it. But Hamilton leading 1.6 seconds ahead of Bottas, though. Bottas is having, I would say, a good race here. He has been keeping Hamilton honest. Hamilton stretched the lead to 2 seconds. Bottas is bringing it back down to 1.5. It's a stronger race performance from Bottas than we've seen over the last couple of Grand Prix.
Yeah, any mistake from Hamilton and he'll be under pressure from Valtteri Bottas. I wonder how much Hamilton's just tempering his own pace right now. Bottas does fastest lap of the Grand Prix, half a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton on the last lap. That's why the gap has come down to, well, a second and a half. Not all that much, but, yeah, I wonder if Hamilton's just measuring his pace right now, so he's got something in the tank later on. But where he is, any mistake, bit of a lock-up, run wide, and Bottas will be within a second and able to pressurise him for the lead.
Max Verstappen very lonely in 3rd position in the Red Bull. The same is true of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari in 4th. Also true of Carlos Sainz in the McLaren in 5th, because he's 2.5 seconds ahead of his McLaren teammate Lando Norris, who just now has managed to get more than a second ahead of Romain Grosjean in 7th position. So now that'll bring Grosjean under pressure from Daniel Ricciardo, because Grosjean won't have the DRS. He'll be the first driver that is a little bit slower on the straights, and he's got a Ferrari power unit in it, which is not particularly strong. So Ricciardo could be looking good before too long. Stroll having a fairly anonymous race, I think, in 9th position in what is a very quick car, the Racing Point. He's not able to make a huge amount of progress.
No, he was on the back of Norris earlier on, but he's dropped back, and Norris, of course, passed Daniel Ricciardo. So there's now a couple of cars between them, because Norris then passed Romain Grosjean as well, who's still yet to pit. Just having an ordinary day in the office, but he's very close to the back of Ricciardo now, Lance Stroll, in what should be a quicker car. Certainly should have more straight-line speed with the Mercedes power unit against the Renault, and then the Ferrari power unit ahead of Grosjean as well. So he could yet make some progress, Stroll.
It's Harrogate versus Notts County in the National League playoff final at Wembley this afternoon, and we've got a goal. Mark Scott.
That's right, Jack. Inside of 5 minutes, Harrogate have the lead. Ryan Fallowfield's low first-time ball in from wide right, slid in really cleverly by George Thompson. Dream start for Harrogate. They lead Notts County 1-0.
We'll keep you up to date with that 3 o'clock kickoff. So, as Mark says, less than 5 minutes played there. And we're on lap 30 of 52 in the British Grand Prix. Hamilton's lead 1.6 seconds to Valtteri Bottas in 2nd, Verstappen in 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Sainz 5th, Norris 6th, Grosjean, Ricciardo, Stroll, Ocon the rest of the top 10, Vettel in 11th, Giovinazzi 12th, Gasly 13th, Alex Albon in 14th, still unable to get past the man he took the seat of last year, Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. George Russell is back ahead of Kimi Räikkönen, so he's now 15th, with Raikkonen 16th and Latifi in 17th position. Myself, Jack Nicholls, Jolyon Palmer and Jenny Gow and Andrew Benson with you for this first of 2 races at Silverstone that we've got coming up on the next 2 weeks here on 5 Live. And you can also hear full free practice sessions, qualifying and everything on the BBC Sport website and app. The sound you can hear is Alex Albon not making a huge amount of progress after being involved in a collision on the opening lap of the Grand Prix with Kevin Magnussen. He pitted before anyone else did, and as a result, he's right down at the back.
And he's got a 5-second penalty to take as well.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Will be added to his race time at the end, unless he makes another pit stop where he'll have to take it then. Fastest lap for Lewis Hamilton. 0.2 quicker than Valtteri Bottas, but the gap remains at 1.6 seconds.
Pierre Gasly has just gone around the outside of Antonio Giovinazzi in the Alfa Romeo. So the Frenchman passed the Italian, and Albon pits again. So he will serve his 5-second penalty here. Not quite sure why he would be pitting. It feels like a kind of time to wait for a gamble, but maybe this is the gamble from Red Bull.
Well, better to take it now, take the 5-second penalty, and then if there's a safety car and some kerfuffle late on, he won't have that still hanging over him. So he comes in.
Oh, he's at it. No, they're now waiting for 5 seconds, and now they start to change the tyres, and the mediums go on, and out goes Albon. So a good 2.6 second pit stop from the Red Bull team, but at 5 you get to 7.6, and Albon's back out on his way. So yeah, very much waiting for something to happen now, Alex Albon.
Yeah, but another safety car, another moment, and he'll be sort of back in towards contention. It's a long way back for him though, 17th place at the moment. Next car ahead of him, Nicholas Latifi, who's on the back of Kimi Raikkonen. Whoa, what a fall from grace for Kimi Raikkonen. Former world champ in 2007, was front-running with Ferrari in this race a couple of years ago, and now he's fighting off Latifi for last place, and he's complaining about the car as well. Rear's going, and not happy days there.
Antonio Giovinazzi is under investigation for a safety car incident, infringement.
We got the black and white flag for moving under braking on sights into 15.
Are you kidding me? On left half of the track.
Don't think that's the argument. I think it's the lateness of the move.
Grosjean's a strange one because he's the head of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, and that's why I find his on-track stuff so baffling, because he drives like he's not and like he doesn't care about safety, but then outside he's all about safety.
Well, I've often found Grosjean's racecraft questionable.
I know I'm nudging you on this one. I'm poking the beast here.
Yeah, I just find his racecraft questionable. And again, I find it questionable there. And so do the stewards, to the point they've given him a black and white flag. Basically, a soft indiscretion that didn't really cause any harm. But he just seems to have a very different idea in his head on what's acceptable and what's not. So I think he genuinely doesn't believe that when he turns into people 4 races out of 5, that it's ever his fault. And when he moves a little bit late, I don't think he ever thinks that it's his fault. I actually agreed with him for the first time in the last race in Hungary when Albon went for a bit of a lunge and they touched. I thought, for once, you know what, I think he's got a point. But generally, he seems to have a different view, I think, on the realities of racing compared to most. I think he means well, but yeah, just I don't understand it sometimes.
I should clarify, he's a director of the Grand Prix Drivers Association. He's not in charge of the Grand Prix Drivers Association.
He's a vocal character. He likes to take responsibility in these briefings, and that's why I think he's got that role.
Nicholas Latifi to the outside of Kimi Raikkonen and past Kimi Raikkonen. So Raikkonen drops to 16th and effectively last, bar Alex Albon. And the Williams up into 15th position. So that's 14th and 15th now, Jenny, for Williams.
Yeah, and Latifi's just been on his radio actually telling his race engineer, you know what, you don't have to tell me when to press my overtake button. I can kind of work it out myself. He sounded like he was a little bit frustrated by the perpetual press now. So he's just reminding the team that he is an F1 driver. He can work out when to do it, and he's done it quite nicely and seen off Kimi Raikkonen. Well done, Nicholas Latifi.
I presume, though, you don't just press the overtake button when you're physically making an overtake, right? It gives you more engine power, and when to use that and where to use that around the track is probably a calculated thing rather than a driver thing.
I can imagine if you've heard it for one lap, you don't need to hear it for the next lap and the next lap and the next lap too. Jody?
No, well, you do basically use the overtake button to make an overtake.
And that's it.
It's because the rest of the energy deployment is done automatically, so you don't need to manually do it every lap. But then you can press and hold and just basically get your full energy deployment when you want it. obviously the engineer must be doing that in terms of maybe getting him a bit closer into Copse, so then he's closer again on the hanger straight, and just using some to get close and then the rest to pass Kimi Räikkönen, which he's just done very nicely. But generally you do just use it all in one shot when you've got it to make the pass. Overtaking opportunities don't come around all that frequently, so you need to have some energy stored up in the battery to deploy, give yourself another chunk of power, a bit more straight line speed, and the best shot you can of making the move cleanly.
Back in the days when overtake buttons used to be, I think, like extra bursts of fuel, you would get drivers running out of fuel because they got so excited pressing the overtake button, burn a bit more fuel. They knew they only had 5 chances to push it during the Grand Prix. They'd use it 7 or 8 times and run out of fuel. Back in the day.
I used to have overboost when I raced in FPA. When I was 16 years old, you had 8 shots of overboost to use. Here's Verstappen.
Remember to drink. TV, remember to drink. Thank you.
Brilliant.
So that's Max Verstappen saying to his race engineer, GP, don't forget to drink, it's hot out there.
And often the drivers get reminded to take a drink because you're so focused on driving the car that you end up getting dehydrated in all your race overalls, getting very hot working in the car. You forget to drink. You finish sometimes with the drink spots are completely full, but Verstappen is having the most lonely race out there, that he's obviously just trying to get the banter out, and he did get a few laughs from the Red Bull mechanics in the garage, reminding his race engineer to have a drink as well. Good stuff.
So you had 8 overboosts in FPA?
Yeah, so I had 8 overboosts in FPA, and it basically went from 300 brake horsepower up to 350 horsepower for 6 seconds a shot. So it's a little bit similar to what you've got now, but they wouldn't regenerate, which you can now with the hybrid power. But some drivers would get so carried away and just use them all in about 2 laps. Just like, yes, go again, go again, go again. And they'd do like the remainder of the race with nothing to defend or attack.
We've just been shown a replay of the Albon incident, and I think it's absolutely mad that he got a penalty for that. Absolutely mad. I honestly don't understand what... You're meant to leave drivers space, but you're not allowed to go to the... It's just so inconsistent, the rulings in Formula 1 wheel-to-wheel combat, from my point of view.
I can't understand it, because Albon was almost directly alongside Kevin Magnussen there. Magnussen just had to leave him a bit of space on the apex. But the problem comes, there's a shot where Albon sees the crash coming and tries to back out of it. So ultimately the contact is the left front of Albon and the rear right of Magnussen. So if you paused it freeze frame at the point of impact, it looks way worse than it actually is. But before that, he's pretty much alongside, where you have to be left space on the apex of a corner. That's how overtakes are done.
Yeah, 100%. Lap 36 of 52. Hamilton leading the Grand Prix. Bottas is second. Antonio Giovinazzi's been given a 5-second time penalty for what it's worth for a safety car infringement, whatever that may be.
He passed Pierre Gasly around that time, so maybe there was something in that.
Okay, so Gasly 12th, Giovinazzi 13th. Hamilton leading the way, Bottas second. And at the moment, Andrew Benson, BBC's chief F1 writer, in the media centre at Silverstone, they are trading fastest laps.
Yes, and I think that's very telling, actually, Jack. I think it seems pretty clear that there's a game of cat and mouse going on here between Hamilton and Bottas. Christian Horner, the Red Bull team boss, was saying on Friday that it's very obvious to them that the Mercedes are just measuring their race pace to the cars behind them. So but when they really need to push, as Bottas did when he was having to catch Verstappen in Hungary, they can go a lot faster than they have been. And although they're faster than everyone else, it's not by a massive amount at the moment. But and everyone has to protect the tyres a bit. That's just the way it is with these tyres in Formula 1. But you've got to remember that there's a point for fastest lap, and they're in a close championship fight. There's 5 points Hamilton's advantage at the moment. And because there's a point for fastest lap, that's a 2-point swing effectively between the two drivers if one of them gets it and the other one doesn't. So I think you're seeing them think they're trying to play off against each other, trying to get to the point where they will be the one who ends up with that 2-point swing. So I think we're going to see this through the rest of the race. You might even see it on the last lap. One of them really goes for it. There's not much else of interest in this race at the moment, so maybe we can look forward to that.
Yeah, well, there's only Romain Grosjean, really, who's lost out to Daniel Ricciardo and has now been overtaken by Lance Stroll. So Ricciardo up into 7th place, Stroll into 8th. But Grosjean, who now pits, surely has a penalty incoming because he got warned for doing a thing down into Stowe, where he moved over in the braking zone, and he did the exact same thing into Brooklands, maybe even worse.
It looked bad. We had a long shot of it from Brooklands looking up the Wellington Straight, where Grosjean again suddenly swerved just as Ricciardo was about to pull out, and that is the way to cause a huge collision in a straight line. Mark Webber-esque when he went flying in Valencia back in 2010 over the back of Heikki Kovalainen. That was in the braking zone at least, and Kovalainen did nothing wrong. But here we go, getting a shot of it now.
Well, he's just served his 5-second time penalty. Very quick work from the stewards. He served it in that pit stop once they changed him onto hard tyres.
Yeah, so that we haven't even had that warning, have the penalty come up. But maybe it has taken on themselves. They just said it's going to happen. So there you go. But he did. He just swerved across last minute again, ignored his. Well, that's why warnings are there.
Yep. Yeah, that was sketchy.
Really sketchy. Well, I presume that's what happened, because they seem to change the tyres. We're getting a replay now, and Grosjean came in. They put the hard tyres on. Or was he just actually... No, it was a problem. I thought that was really quick. There we go. I said something good about the stewards. I'll take it away. But it looked as though it was intentional, but I think it was a problem, actually, getting away from the pit stop.
Yeah, he gave it some revs, and the car went nowhere, and the mechanics were not expecting him to go nowhere. So...
still a penalty to come, then?
Yeah, probably.
Vettel is battling with Pierre Gasly in 10th and 11th positions.
That looks like a great move from Gasly round the outside of Stowe, which gave him the inside for Club. The Alpha Tauri passes the Ferrari, the two Italian teams there. Not the way round you'd expect the overtake to come, but Gasly up into the points with what looked like a really smart, brave overtake around the outside of Stowe, which was completed at the following corner.
And that's these two now are on identical tyre strategies as well. So before, Vettel started on the softs, and that's why he could have been in a little bit of trouble. But now he and Gasly are both on the medium compound of the hard compound of tyres. So that is just a pure pace overtake for Pierre Gasly on Sebastian Vettel, who is having a horrible weekend at the moment.
Vettel's just had no pace at all.
Oh, Gasly might get done, though, because he was all four wheels off the circuit on the exit of Stowe.
I think he might have been OK. It's four wheels over the curb on the exit that the stewards are looking out for.
I felt like he was.
We'll get another shot of it. Oh. You will need the microscope for that one. The question then would be, was he forced out there? Because Vettel was right with him as well. For my money, that's a nice move, but let's see. Vettel's just had no pace all weekend long. Qualified nearly a second behind Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's now in fourth place, having a quietly solid drive in the Ferrari that failed to get into to Q3 in the first two races of the season. Now he's up in fourth, and Vettel has just slipped out of the points.
I think hopefully that move will stick for Gasly, because it was a good move. If he was off track limits, he was clearly trying to stay within track limits, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Interestingly, on the timing screens, it's just come up that his last lap time was deleted for going over track limits. So, but hopefully the stewards will deem that one, because Vettel was right there, he actually couldn't really stay within track limits and avoid a crash.
Yeah, lap 39 of 52. Hamilton leading the Grand Prix, 2 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton has that fastest lap at the moment, as Andrew Benson was alluding to earlier. The 2-point swing that comes with getting or not getting the fastest lap could be important in this championship later on. Hamilton has that at the moment. Then it's 10 seconds back to Verstappen, who seems incredibly bored with this Grand Prix, as does Charles Leclerc. Maybe a bit less so, because he's got Sainz 4 seconds behind him. Then Norris in 6th, Ricciardo in 7th position. 8th is Lance Stroll, who's dropped back since from Ricciardo, and now Ocon is behind Lance Stroll, trying to get through. Alex Albon has now caught the back of Kimi Raikkonen, the Red Bull, who has done 2 pit stops to everybody else's 1, is on the back of the Alfa Romeo that's having a very difficult afternoon, to be honest, lapping about 3 or 4 tenths slower than his teammate Antonio Giovinazzi, and now getting fairly straightforwardly overtaken by Alex Albon, who is in a much quicker car, up into 15th position.
Raikkonen must be wondering why he's still here. This is a former champion, one of the greats of this generation, Kimi Raikkonen, And now he's just been passed systematically by 2 Williams and a recovering Alex Albon. Raikkonen's got no defence. He's in a slow car in the Alfa Romeo, but his teammate is still up in 12th place. This comes a race after he got a 5-second penalty last time for lining up in the wrong grid spot. Easier said than done, because the cars ahead of him had come into the pits to take the start, but he's not very quick at the moment. He's making some errors. He's turning 41 soon, which is old for a Formula 1 driver anyway, and it's not a nice way to be going for Raikkonen.
Fastest lap of the Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton extends his lead to 2.7 seconds now up at the front of the field. Valtteri Bottas running in second position, Max Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth, Sainz fifth, Norris, Ricciardo, Stroll, Ocon and Gasly the rest of the top 10. Then it is Vettel in 11th place ahead of Giovinazzi, Russell, Latifi, Albon, Raikkonen and Grosjean, the 17 drivers out there. And Albon on this current lap looks like he's going to set the fastest lap of the race. He's on the medium tyre. Everybody else is on the hards at the moment. And we have got only 12 laps to go now, with on lap 41 and 52. Hamilton 2.8 seconds up the road from Bottas. So initially I thought Bottas was putting on some good pressure. It now looks as though Hamilton is starting to stretch his legs just a little bit.
Fastest lap on the last lap, just taken by Alex Albon by a couple of hundredths on his new medium tyres, Albon. Max Verstappen going quickly in the other Red Bull now as well. Fastest first sector of anyone in the entire race so far. And he's done a personal best middle sector. Red Bull right now are quick.
Max Verstappen could be getting the fastest lap here today, because he is 10 seconds behind the Mercedes, so they haven't got a free pit stop to make. Verstappen does. Here's Bottas's radio.
The vibration is getting a bit worse. It's not a flat spot, but it just vibrates.
Bottas complaining of a vibration on his Mercedes, but Verstappen does have a free pit stop. He's just set the fastest lap, and so if he wanted to come in on the final lap and go for the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, he could do, and that would take that 1 point away from either of the Mercedes cars.
And that is the benefit of remaining 10 seconds adrift of the two Mercedes. He's actually had quite a good race, really, Verstappen.
Yeah. Oh, Ocon, I thought he was going for it very late in the day there on Lance Stroll, but bails out of it. I think he might have thought he was going for it there, but he was an awful long way back.
Looked like he was in two minds. Stroll just slowing at the end of the straight, and Ocon suddenly had a big closing speed, but did not dare lunge it on the inside of a fast corner, Stowe, at the end of the hangar straight. But Stroll's really struggling now. He's dropping back at a second a lap from Ricciardo ahead. He's in what we all thought was a very quick car. Qualified well, but now he's struggling to hang on to the second Renault, and Pierre Gasly and Sebastian Vettel are still not a million miles away.
Hamilton leading the British Grand Prix here on BBC Radio 5 Live. That's former F1 driver Jolyon Palmer with me, Jack Nicholls. We've got Jenny Gow and Andrew Benson with us as well. Let's go to Jenny.
Yeah, Stroll says he's struggling with his tyres. I'm just listening across his team radio. He's saying, I don't have anything left in my tyres, and the team are actually trying to remind him of other ways to defend.
Not Romain Grosjean's way, I hope.
Oh, low blow.
10 laps to go. Hamilton leading, Bottas second, Verstappen third with the fastest lap. Leclerc is fourth, Sainz is fifth, Norris is sixth. Ricciardo is a second or so behind Lando Norris. The sound you can hear is Esteban Ocon right up behind Lance Stroll, who is in the racing point in 8th position at the moment. Not having a great race, to be honest, as we previously alluded to. Ocon not close enough for a look this time into Stowe Corner. Or hashtag BBC F1 on social media, Nulla Pax asks, with regards to Raikkonen, Jolyon, and running around at the back in a bad car, couldn't the same be said about Alonso's years at McLaren?
I think the prospects for Alonso was better. He was there for a long-term project, which ended up going very badly. And then Alonso left Formula 1 because he got fed up of it. He could have remained at McLaren, but he didn't want to, did he, at the end of 2018? He's now coming back with Renault for next year. But I suspect Raikkonen is going to be going the same way at the end of the year. It's not fun, particularly if you're a young driver. Most of them start at the back, and like Nicholas Latifi, George Russell, you show what you can do in those sort of cars. Giovinazzi, Raikkonen's teammate, is in the same boat. You've still got your comparison to your teammate. You've still got the odd chance of scraping a point, which feels like a win. When you've had many, many wins and a championship, scrabbling around for a 10th place finish, I can't see the motivation in it. And for Kimi Räikkönen, particularly right now, being plumb last, he must be questioning quite what he's doing right now. He loves driving Formula One cars, that's clear. It doesn't always seem it from his interviews in the media. He never seems to be outwardly happy, but driving Formula One cars clearly makes him inwardly happy. But I don't know, there's one thing. Even being in a midfield fight, you can really enjoy the battles. But being at the back, he qualified last time. He's running last this time. He's a great driver, a champion. This is not what it's all about. And Alonso quit last time that happened.
And I think Alonso was also beating his teammates still as well, which was a sort of big part of it, whereas Räikkönen is a long way behind Antonio Giovinazzi today. The incident involving Grosjean and Ricciardo will be investigated after the race. Well, we'll get onto that in a moment. Goal at Wembley, though, meanwhile. Mark Scott.
And it's 2-0 to Harrogate against Notts County. It has been coming as well. They passed up a number of good opportunities. This one ends up in. George Thompson's free kick stabbed home by Connor Hall from close range. Harrogate 2, Notts County 0.
So we'll keep you up to date with the National League playoff final at Wembley. Lap 44 of 52 in the British Grand Prix, though, here at Silverstone. And Hamilton is leading 3.4 seconds now ahead of Valtteri Bottas, really starting to build up his lead. No investigation necessary, or no action necessary, say the stewards, for Gasly's move on Vettel. So that's good that that's been cleared. But investigating the Grosjean-Ricciardo thing after the race is... Well, I nearly went for embarrassing, but I won't say that.
It's going to be just a slight waste of everyone's time, that investigation, because Grosjean...
But it's like, what's the point in doing the warning during the Grand Prix, then?
Yeah, Grosjean is at the back, fighting with Räikkönen. Ricciardo is ultimately unaffected by it, and now they've got to go up and see the stewards and hang around when they don't need to be. It should be a penalty for Grosjean, but fine. It doesn't really affect anything we're doing here.
Good. Perfect. Just having a look at Bottas's tyres. In fact, both Mercedes tyres, they're on the hard tyre. They came in when everybody else came in under that safety car. In fact, it's a lap later than most people on 14. But the ridges round the front right, I think it's front left tyre, it's really bad at the moment. Bottas's car looks awful. He's complaining of vibrations, and the gap between Hamilton and Bottas is growing. But I'm just trying to find out for the team how bad those tyres are, because they don't look happy to me.
Well, Bottas is 3.6 seconds off the back of Hamilton now, 10 seconds ahead of Verstappen. We're now going to get an interesting fight, because Alex Albon in the Red Bull is about to pass George Russell in the Williams, as you would expect. But Russell himself is only half a second or so behind Antonio Giovinazzi in the Alfa Romeo. So Russell having a good little fight here. Albon goes up the inside of Russell, is up into 13th place, but he'll soon make light work of Giovinazzi as well. Albon's got a shot at some points here, I think, which is something.
An outside shot. He's going to have to really put the hammer down in the closing stages. He's going to pass Giovinazzi very, very quickly. The Red Bull now much quicker than the Alfa Romeos and the Williams cars he's just passed. He passed the Latifi a couple of laps ago as well. He's recovering, but then there's going to be a 6-second gap to pass Vettel and then get onto Gasly.
Oh, Ocon going almost into the back of Lance Stroll as they come down into Stowe Corner, braking from about 200 miles an hour. Stroll covers the inside for the left-hander at Vale, then it's the two rights at Club. Alex Albon has got ahead now of Antonio Giovinazzi. We're on lap 46 of 52, so this race feels like it's gone quite quickly, even though at times it feels like it's gone quite slowly. And everybody's pulling faces at me, so maybe I'm the only one that this has kind of flown by for.
I kind of agree. We've had long safety car periods as well, but before we know it, we're getting to the closing stages. The fastest lap point is still up for grabs, and so is 8th place. Ocon right on the back of Stroll here.
Down the Wellington straight, Stroll early, covers the inside, Ocon to the outside, sweeps around in the Renault and moves up into 8th position. A strong showing this from Renault this weekend. Ricciardo in 7th now, Ocon in 8th, Stroll down to 9th, Pierre Gasly's in 10th position. The rest of the top 4 remain the same. Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen and Leclerc. Sainz, Norris 5th and 6th. Ricciardo, Ocon 7th and 8th for Renault. 9th is Stroll, 10th is Gasly. Outside of the points at the moment, Vettel, Albon, Giovinazzi, Russell, Latifi, Grosjean and Räikkönen. Hamilton out in front still, 4.6 seconds clear of the rest of the field.
Nice enough move from Esteban Ocon around the outside of Lance Stroll, largely done in a straight line. Stroll defended when he potentially didn't have to, and has picked up a black and white flag as well.
Carlos needs to get a move on, otherwise I'm going to start to struggle more and Carlos is going to put me under pressure.
Understood, Lando. We're telling Carlos now.
So that's Norris in 6th, saying he wants Sainz in 5th to hurry up, his McLaren teammate, because otherwise Ricciardo in the Renault in 7th is going to be right up behind him. Nico Hülkenberg didn't start the race. Kevin Magnussen crashed on the opening lap, and Daniel Kvyat, Jenny, had a big accident as well. Those are our 3 retirements.
Yeah, he didn't, and the team have just come back to me, and they've said at the time of the crash he was distracted changing switches on the steering wheel, hit the curb and spun. So that's what they think happened. We know we looked at it and called it maybe suspension failure or puncture or something going on, but that's what they say, and we heard Daniel Kvyat apologising, so we have to go with what the team says, I suppose. Strange.
Well,
they've got all the info.
Yeah.
So fair dues, and a poor mistake then for Daniel Kvyat. Interesting situation developing for 5th place. Sainz holding up Norris, and Ricciardo is catching them both quickly. Ricciardo just half a second back from the McLaren of Norris. He's only a second and a half really back from Sainz. He might have them both if McLaren aren't careful.
Yeah, a lot of vibrations on the car, I don't know why.
Copy.
Sainz saying that he's got a lot of vibration on the car as he comes through the right-hander at Stowe Corner, then drops down into the left-hander at Vale, then through the double right at Club, and out over the start-finish straight again to start lap 48 of 52. So 5 laps to go in the British Grand Prix here on BBC Radio 5 Live. Hamilton comfortably leading it, 5.7 seconds now ahead of Bottas. So he was just managing the pace, it would seem, and has now absolutely bossed the Grand Prix. Got a yellow flag out there, so maybe an incident in coming into the final couple of corners, but now the track's been clear again. Albon just sets the fastest lap of the race, trying to see if anyone did a slow lap last time around that would explain that moment. Giovinazzi on that.
Raikkonen.
Was it Raikkonen? Oh, yeah.
He's been in the wars.
Front left is broken on his front wing, so he is now going very, very slowly, Kimi Raikkonen, trying to keep out of everybody's way. Wasn't really fighting with anyone, was he? He was fairly lonely.
Yeah, I think he had Grosjean around him.
We're about to get a replay of it, and no, I think it's dragging. Look, I think the front left part of the wing was drooping and dragging already. Then it started rubbing on the front left tyre, and then coming through the right-hander at Beckett's out onto the straight again. It broke away.
Yeah, so somewhere he's had contact with something, presumably Kimi Raikkonen, maybe right at the start of this race. Maybe that explains why he's had quite as bad a race as he has, in fairness.
Pierre Gasly's on Lance Stroll now in the AlphaTauri. Gasly to the outside at Stowe. He pulled this move off on Vettel. Can't quite get it done on Lance Stroll for 9th position. Does he fancy it again down into Vale? No. All big lock-up, though, from Stroll. Stroll's having a pretty tough race today. I nearly said bad. Maybe that's too harsh, but it's very, very tough for him. And he's in just ahead of Pierre Gasly. Gasly looked to the inside into Abbey, and they're going to go side-by-side through Abbey. It's not even side-by-side. Gasly just strolls through on Lance and up into 9th position. Bad race this for Stroll.
And Stroll might not be getting any points at all because Albon is flying in the Red Bull. He's only a second away from Sebastian Vettel. That'll be for 11th. And then he's going to catch Lance Stroll, I think, pretty much on the last lap. So Albon might sneak the final point away from Lance Stroll. He's going backwards pretty quickly now.
Hamilton leading still, Bottas in 2nd, Jenny.
Yeah, Bottas really struggling with his tyres now. The vibration that he's getting from the wear on those tyres. Team Radio.
Gasly enjoyed that one.
Yeah, Bottas struggling with the vibration now. In fact, he's saying it's so bad that he's struggling for visibility. So not great for the second Mercedes driver.
Wow, so the other car shaking around so much that he's getting a bit blurry. Hamilton's off. Hamilton's got a front wing failure.
It's Bottas.
Oh, it's Bottas.
And Verstappen's going to come through.
It's a front left puncture for Valtteri Bottas, flying off down to the first corner. Sorry to give you all a heart attack, but Hamilton is still in lead of the Grand Prix. Verstappen is now 2nd, and those vibrations for Valtteri Bottas ultimately look like they've led to a puncture. And this is going to be a huge swing in the championship in favour of Lewis Hamilton at the British Grand Prix. Verstappen is now 2nd. Bottas I don't think he's score any points here today. Meanwhile, Alex Albon has got up into 11th place, and he's going to try and close in on Lance Stroll for the final points-paying position. But with 3 laps to go, Bottas is effectively out of the running.
He can get back to the pits. He's halfway around the lap now. He's coming to the old start-finish straight. He's got a big puncture. It's flailing around now, the left front tyre. It's damaged the front wing. His steering's crabbing to the right. He's got a long way to get back, and he's got all of the rest of the points contenders screaming up behind him. 18 seconds to Leclerc. Is coming down all the time. Then he's got to make a pit stop. This could be nil point.
This could be the end of Bottas's title challenge. That's a little bit dramatic, I know. 4 Grand Prix in. He's trying to get back to the pits as quickly as possible as he now comes back down the hangar straight. And into the pits comes Verstappen. So he's now going for his fastest lap move. Hamilton's onto the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. In comes Max Verstappen to pit for new tyres. He will emerge on the soft tyres and try and set the fastest lap and take a point there. I don't see Bottas getting points. I think it's no chance.
Yeah, it happened right at the start of the lap into turn 3, and he ran straight on when that tyre went. The left front takes the hardest work around this Silverstone circuit. A lot of fast right-handers. Bottas is back in the pits, still ahead of Leclerc as he comes in. Now they all flash past. Quick turnaround, but I think he's going to lose too many places in the pits.
Bottas in then. They have to pull up the car, change the tyre, onto a new set of soft tyres. He might still get the fastest lap. He might get some points here. You know, Gasly goes through into 8th. Stroll now comes through into 9th. Bottas drops down to 11th. Can he emerge ahead of the Vettel and Albon? Well, Albon's already got ahead of Vettel. Yeah, he's not going to do it here, Valtteri Bottas. He emerges in 12th place. Even if he's rapid, he's got to get 6 seconds in 2 laps, which doesn't quite seem doable.
No, that's it. Bottas, no points. Hamilton leads the race. Verstappen pitted for a set of soft tyres, so he can go for the fastest lap point and will surely get it ahead of Lewis Hamilton. But this is, regardless, going to be a huge swing in the title fight.
So please don't go for fastest lap. We just need to get the car home. Tyre integrity is the predominant thing.
Understood.
And Alex Albon now is going for 9th place. He's managed to catch Lance Stroll and is up into 9th position. So Albon's climbed through the order, sees him move up into 9th spot. Ricciardo's got ahead of Sainz, and Sainz has got a front left puncture as well. Carlos Sainz in the McLaren loses 4th place to Ricciardo. Ricciardo had already got past Norris, and now Sainz is going to struggle to get to the end of the Grand Prix. Hamilton is on his final tour, and Sainz has to pit, so that's disaster for McLaren. Sebastian Vettel might end up with a point in all of this. The front lefts are falling apart out there.
Yeah, it's the 2 drivers that were complaining of big vibrations struggling. Another Mercedes. Hamilton's got a problem.
It is Lewis Hamilton from the lead of the Grand Prix. The front left has blown and punctured. Max Verstappen could win the race, and Mercedes domination looks to be over for the British Grand Prix at least. Valtteri Bottas had a puncture, Sainz had a puncture, and now race leader Lewis Hamilton on the final lap is crawling around. Verstappen is 30 seconds behind, and we're going to have the slowest race to the line in the history of Formula One. If Verstappen hadn't pitted, he would have won this Grand Prix. Now it's going to be absolutely neck and neck. Hamilton coming down towards Stowe, 3 wheels on his wagon, the front left puncture, spray and dirt being ground up from the bottom of the Mercedes. He might just hold on here. He's coming through the right-hander at Stowe corner. The car is leaning on the left front. This is Verstappen's radio.
If you get on with it.
But Hamilton locks up into Vale. He turns through the right-hander at Club, and probably at the slowest speed ever won a British Grand Prix. Hamilton across the line, takes the checkered flag, wins in Silverstone with 3 wheels. Max Verstappen is just 6 seconds away from winning the race. Somehow, Hamilton has held on to win. Charles Leclerc is going to finish in 3rd position. What an ending to a Grand Prix. The first 50 laps were pretty bad. The last 2, absolutely phenomenal. Bottas to the outside of Vettel. He's trying to get 11th place on the last lap, and he's managed to do it. No, he hasn't. Vettel holds on. Bottas goes to the inside now on the soft tyres, but Again, not particularly inspired overtaking from Valtteri Bottas, so it'll be 0 points for him. Somehow, Lewis Hamilton has won the British Grand Prix in probably the most extraordinary of circumstances in one of the most unextraordinary races.
Wow, that came to life, though, at the end. If Verstappen hadn't have pitted to go for the fastest lap, he would have won the Grand Prix from nowhere. But he didn't. He pitted, and Hamilton somehow clings on to the win.
Is that the last lap?
That's it, mate. You've done it. You've done it. Well, that's it, mate.
Wow, that was the reaction on the radio from Pete Bonington, Hamilton's race engineer, as he now can appropriately go slowly back to the pit lane, where we'll hear from him in a couple of moments here on 5 Live. But Hamilton takes the win. Verstappen in second, Leclerc third, fourth for Daniel Ricciardo in the end, Norris in fifth, sixth for Ocon, seventh for Pierre Gasly. Great drive from the Frenchman today. He might get my driver of the day, but download the Checker Flag podcast later on to get that officially. Alex Albon in 8th position, Lance Stroll 9th. Vettel got a point in 10th position. So Bottas, if he'd have got past him, he would have got a point. What happened at the end, though? It would have been Sainz, would it, that they managed to get past?
They all jumped past Sainz, who had his own front left tyre issues, and that would have been a point for Bottas, but he didn't make the move, and that summed up his race, really. I tell you what, when you talk about championships won by fine margins, the margin of 1 lap difference for a puncture there has saved Lewis Hamilton a huge 25 points. That could be a 50-point swing in the title if the punctures had gone the other way.
Oh, mate.
He's a lucky boy. He's a lucky boy.
So Hamilton's lead at the top of the championship is now 30 points over Valtteri Bottas, where we were saying maybe it will extend to 12. It's now 30. It's now more than a race win. That is a huge advantage for Hamilton, a huge blow for Valtteri Bottas. He and Bottas getting punctures in the final laps of the Grand Prix. I scared you all by saying it was Hamilton, first of all, when it was Bottas, and then it was Hamilton. I didn't want to commit to it second time around. Palmer was in there like a flash. Wow, what an end to the race, Jenny.
Bottas again. Surely the lap after he's just put on a new set.
Yeah.
That's commentator's curse for you, Jack. I tell you what, I was watching Hamilton and Bottas's tyres. That's how exciting I am for the last 7 laps. And the ridge in them was getting worse and worse. You could hear the vibrations, the complaints from Bottas. Nothing from Hamilton on his radio. We all know how much Hamilton complains about his tyres at the best of times. He doesn't complain about them when they are problematic. He tried everything he could to hold on to those tyres.
That was close.
Weird failures, though, Jolyon.
The irony that every single race Lewis Hamilton's won for the last ever, there's been, my tyres are gone, my tyres are gone. And then they go, and it's just nothing. But, wow, weird.
Oh,
and it was close. And it was just for Bottas. It went through the final corner the previous lap. And it was a whole lap to get round to the pits. If it had gone just a couple of corners before, he'd have got round to the pits and still finished third. It's just the margins for this of pure luck at the end of the day. The drivers can't really... They obviously don't want a puncture. They don't know when it's about to go. It just comes down to luck of where it happens. And Hamilton, he deserved the win, clearly. He drove a great race, but he was lucky with getting round to the finish with another couple of corners, and he wouldn't have won the race. And Bottas, if his puncture had happened a couple of corners before, he would have still been on the podium.
Was this just running the tyres too long into the Grand Prix?
There must be. Just the front left takes such a load with so many fast right-hand corners at Silverstone, and it must have just worn them away, and then eventually just gone through the whole tyre. I can only imagine on the front left there'll be a big inquest at Pirelli. We've got another race at this track next week with softer tyres, so they might have to do more than one pit stop.
Yeah, it was going to be a push, wasn't it? For front left was limited. We always knew that it was going to be a tough one, and because of the way that the pit stops happened, everybody came in when that safety car was around, lap 13 or 14. So the push to get back home on the hard tyres was going to be so tough for everybody, and those 3 cars proving it was a stretch too far. Maybe when Mercedes were, rolling round getting fastest lap and trying to beat each other, they should have just sort of held fire a little bit.
Yeah, but I think the thing, usually when we say that the tyres will last 40 laps, let's say, that means that after 40 laps, the grip will go and you can't really drive round on them fast anymore.